Yes, welcome to another episode of Data and AI Talks. My name is Vincent Spruit, and today with me I have Bas Geerdink. We're going to talk about the data engineer of the future. So, Bas, you obtained your master's degree in AI at the University of Groningen in 2004, and then started as a software developer. After a few years, you grew to architect. You have worked for companies like DXC Technology and ING, and then as a freelancer for Rabobank, bol.com, Wayfair, and many others, always as a data or machine learning lead engineer. And also what I like to mention is that you are an expert and speaker in the field of data and AI. You have several publications, and I saw a few short ones with ML Ops Playbook and 97 things every data engineer should know. So let's not do all 97, but maybe we can handle like 3 of them also in this podcast right here.
Sure.
But welcome.
Thanks.
So we're going to talk about the data engineer of the future and the skills that they need to have, should they develop, and what is really not done. First of all, there's many different tools, platforms. Let's start there in the clouds.
Yeah.
Which cloud is the best?
Which cloud is the best? Well, none of them actually. I would say I have some personal preferences for working with certain technology or certain infrastructure, certain clouds, but to be honest, that's not so important, because choosing a technology stack, so choosing which cloud is the best, that really depends on the client and what what the culture and the organization is of the organization that wants to implement, for example, a data platform. Yeah. So of course the 3 big ones, Amazon AWS and Azure from Microsoft and Google Cloud. Those are the 3 big ones. They're all very good. So you can do anything on that infrastructure that you want as a modern software engineer or a modern data engineer. There are some minor some differences, but largely you could say if you pick one of those 3, you're good. So yeah.
If you pick one of those 3 as a organization or as a candidate, like as a data engineer.
Yeah, as either. I mean, those organizations will have the choices, of course, because as a data engineer, you just follow the organization. I think there's few data engineers who can pick their own cloud stack, but maybe you come in that situation once. So then you just follow follow what the organization has to offer. And what I would recommend you. So you also mentioned actually 97 things every data engineer should know. One of the things that I actually would recommend is not to focus on a certain specific tool stack too much. Yeah. Because if you would say, okay, as a data engineer, I can work only on AWS. Yeah. Hey, what about the other 3 major cloud platforms? But also maybe you come in the future, you come across a technology stack that is even a different one. It's something that you have not worked on yet. So if you focus not on the tools themselves too much, but more on the concepts and on the architecture and on the generic patterns and the generic processes that are inherent to all of these clouds, then you will become a much more flexible engineer.
Yeah. What you said in the beginning was you cannot choose your own cloud, and I think if you're in an organization, of course, that's as a data engineer, that's not possible. But you are able to pick the organization you work for, and if you wish to work with a certain cloud, you want to learn something about another, then you might have to switch. Do you see often that organizations have multiple clouds? Because for one data engineer to work with several would be hard in one organization, I think.
So what do you mean? That an organization has multiple cloud vendors?
No, you say a data engineer should learn, be tool agnostic or cloud agnostic, so work with several clouds. But if you are working for one organization, that's hard usually.
Yeah, that's true. So that's why I also would recommend people to maybe try out different
switch after 3 years.
Yeah, but I think that's an important part of growing in your role as a data engineer, is to to be a bit flexible in that sense and to actually learn multiple technologies. And you can do it in several ways. Within one organization, you could probably experiment a bit sometimes with other tools within the same cloud vendor that was picked. Or you could, for example, go work for a consultancy organization where you would have maybe a new project every year or so. And in that sense, also get to feel a bit for different organizational structures, different tool vendors, different cloud platforms, which is pretty highly recommended in my opinion, if you're still a junior or media engineer.
Yeah, so maybe start out in the consultancy firms and just see maybe 3-4 different environments, and get more all around developed that way.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's the best way if you're aiming to be a freelancer and you want other organizations to hire your skills. Because if you just work for one organization for 10 years, usually you know one trick real good and you know how it works in that specific organization, but it doesn't mean that if you switch that you'll be as great.
Yeah. So in the end, I think people have to decide these kind of things for themselves, because I cannot give an advice for every engineer in that situation. There are people who are very happy working 20 years for one employer and then also growing with that organization and transforming maybe to different tool stacks and different technologies. But it is a bit more rare in these times, of course. We had the area of job hopping already. Well, maybe that's a bit over, but still, it's good for your personal development, I think, to also be able to work for other organizations and to also see some other cultures from inside the organization. Maybe even work abroad for a while, because that also helps you to develop a different mindset and work with different kind of people in a different culture. That's also very, I did some of that myself as well, and I learned so much from that. And then you also find out it's not just about technology that you work with, because people will pick a technology, a tool or a cloud, and they will implement it in completely different ways if you let them, let them have it. So that's also something to realize. The tool itself is just one of the choices that organizations have to make to, for example, to build a cloud or to build a data stack.
Yeah, and I think if you learn just a specific tool within 10 years, probably it's obsolete again, and there's something else that's running the market.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I've been in this industry now for almost 20 years, and I've seen so many tools come and go. Although, I mean, so that's what I would recommend also, not to focus too much on a single tool, because even if you like a tool very much, or even a programming language or a database, if you focus on it too much, you might actually get disappointed if you have to do a project with something else, or if your organization that you work for decides to get rid of the technology. But you should not feel too emotionally attached to such a tool. Even that sounds maybe strange, but some people actually have that kind of commitment to a certain technology. It's much better to focus more on generic concepts and generic patterns that can be applied in different ways to different tools. Yeah,
specifically right now, you have studied AI already in 25 years ago, and you got your degree in 2004, but AI now is actually developing much faster than ever, and it will take over a lot of the engineering, the writing of code.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so 20 years ago, it was a very niche market. So there was some work in AI. It wasn't even called data science yet, actually. So it was just called algorithms or AI indeed. And the things that I learned back then are completely unapplicable at the moment, because I learned to write my own custom algorithms in C++, for example, which was state of the art back then. And now we're still talking about AI. We're still doing algorithms, but they are implemented with completely different, technology, with different data, much bigger data sets, of course, obviously, and the whole field has evolved tremendously, and that will continue to happen. It's maybe a no-brainer, but if you're working in a digital world, you have to continue to keep learning, right? It's a continuous learning until you die, basically, world.
Yeah, if you stop growing, then that's the end of your career. I think you are the type of person that a lot of organizations want to work with. You have a job stability or job security always. Like if you want, you can switch easily. You work towards that. What do you say are the most important skills that you developed to get to this point?
Ooh, yeah, that's a big. It's a bit personal, I think, because well, first of all, what I say is, I would say skills. Yeah, they are important. You have to, whatever you just said, you have to keep learning. But also, I think it's very important to do what you love, to do what you are good at, and also, to find the 𝘰𝘰𝘮𝘭𝘏. That's the common name for that. So find the sweet spot of work that you can do well and that you also like to do, because then you will be motivated automatically to improve and to innovate, to find out new things, to keep learning, and to keep to keep doing that. And that makes you valuable for organizations, whether it is data engineering or front-end engineering or anything in IT. I believe if you have this kind of sweet spot and you stick to that, then you will be you have a successful career. So I think that's very important. And
how do you find that sweet spot? That's tricky.
Well, it's sometimes just by talking to at least what I did, as I sometimes just talk to for example my girlfriend or my friends about these kind of things. But it's also a bit of trial and error. I once pursued a career, for example, to be a manager, and I envisioned myself in as a CIO or so in 5 years' time. But when I reached the point when I was managing a very big department of like 100 people, after a year or so, I actually found out, hey, this is not really what I want to do. Even I worked very hard to reach that point, and I achieved it. I was very happy. Yeah, it was still not, the right career for me, apparently. So I never regret it, because that you can only realize that when you pursue it and you fail or you actually
fail forward.
And then you make a short side step again, and you find maybe something that you do like to do. So it's not always easy. But I think everybody should approach it in his own way. And there's also, of course, so many, management books and courses to find this out. But it is a good point. I think it's also a good question, because there's a lot of people in software engineering focus on the hard skills, right? So focus on programming skills and data, etc. That's very important, but also I would say don't neglect all the other, important skills that you need in a business environment. You need communication skills. You need negotiation skills, etc. So,
and I see that those are actually becoming more important. Let's say for the data engineer 2.0, we're not looking for somebody just to code, because you can actually use other software and AI to help you with that. But you will need people to do a much broader thing, like talk to the business, maybe make also a dashboard, maybe implement some machine learning as well, like do everything.
Yeah, so what you see now indeed is that some, I mean not all of course, but some of the work that software engineers do can be automated by robots or by ChatGPT, by language models. And that's a good thing, I think. I really believe that it is a fantastic development. But also you have to realize that if you do work that can be automated, then it will also be automated. So you have to focus on the things that are not automatable, so to say, that cannot be done as easily by robots. And programming is one of the things I think that is still important. So I think a lot of engineers would learn to program, will also keep on doing that. But maybe even more important is for example how to design a system, or so things like architecture and system design are becoming more important, because then if you do that in a good way, then you are adding more value to an organization than just somebody who writes and implements source code.
Yeah, in the market I see there was a little bit of a mismatch between students and the jobs that are out there with companies, especially in data science. So you see that a lot of people get trained to be a data scientist, and there's not that much work anymore. How do you see now the market develop in data and AI?
Yeah, of course, in data and AI, what you already mentioned, the generative AI is a huge development that is now happening. And I mean, since half a year or so, it's been basically crazy with the launching of ChatGPT and 𝘮𝘯 and Midjourney, all kinds of generative AI algorithms. And they offer a huge amount of potential for organizations. So I think that's important to see, to realize what's happening there. And for data engineers, it probably means not so much on the short term, but maybe on the long term. It means that things that you, what we just mentioned, things that you are already doing that can be maybe automated, will probably be automated, right? So I think there's something important to realize. It doesn't mean that you should not do your programming anymore, or working with the terminal or in a notebook or something like that. But it is, it's good to realize that this work will probably be automatable in the future.
So what is the skill? Should you learn maybe prompting? Like we hear the prompt engineer now popping up. Do you see that's the future? Yeah,
so I think prompting will be important. It's already important. What I see, so I also, of course, I'm using ChatGPT in my daily work already. But what I do see is that you have. So what I think is important when you do prompt engineering is that the things that you ask a system, you should also be able to understand it yourself. Because if you prompt ChatGPT or another large language model for a technology, for example, an algorithm or a piece of source code, and you don't really understand what it comes up with, it's still dangerous to implement that, because it might still contain errors. It might still, do something that you don't want to do. So I consider prompting to be a tool that is helpful, for example, for the first initial writing of your code, just to get started, or maybe to review your code, because it's also a good prompt to ask a large language model, hey, can you review this code, or can you review this text for me? And then check if you can actually improve on it, and you can learn from it again. I would consider a prompt. A prompt is more like a question or an instruction to maybe a super senior engineer that is always there for you. So that's of course very helpful. That's something that most people don't have in their day-to-day work. You cannot always ask a senior engineer to review your code, because it doesn't have time for it. On the other side, it's also a junior engineer, because what it can come up with might be below quality, but might be low quality, or might not actually produce the results that you want. So you still have to understand the code that you're getting back. Yeah,
that's a good one. So it probably, the prompting will be a desired skill in most jobs, but especially also in data engineering. There's a lot of students maybe who want to work in data, how would you say that they should, which career should they choose? Should they do a data engineering course, or how would you start?
It depends, of course, on the personal preferences of people. I mean, there's so much to do in all kinds of places, and I think every career will have its own developments. I would just say, if you find something interesting, try to find a matching project or an organization that ticks the box for you. The technology might not even be the most important, but if you want to work, for example, if you like the retail industry very much, find something that where you can do a project where you get enthusiastic from, because that's quite important. I've seen so many times that I've also in myself that I started a project, and after a few weeks I thought, okay, yeah, I'm doing some cool stuff with technology, but actually I don't support the end goal of this company or of this project. And then you really get a bit demotivated, and then you don't put the extra step forward to get the results that you want, and that's not helping yourself, and also not the organization.
Yeah, so you should see what motivates you intrinsically. Like, is it impact? Is it money? Is it whatever? Solving problems? Is it big organization, small organization? And then do you like retail? Do you like food? Do you like and then choose a company that works with it.
Yeah, but of course I understand that the answers might be a bit vague. But so I would, if I would put a few tips forward, I would advise young data engineers to look for projects or companies where at least there is some kind of innovation going on. Don't settle with the status quo. If you end up in a project or in a in a department where there's not much new stuff being developed, or where it's basically just maintaining what is there, you probably will not learn so much. So that's I think quite important. And for the rest, what is also good advice, I would say, is to not only do what you're told, so to say. Of course, you have to do your job, but next to that, in engineering, there's so much out there in, for example, the open source world. You can and you should probably also find a nice side project for yourself. Maybe you can do it even in your working hours, because a lot of companies offer, for example, the Friday afternoon for personal development. Yeah. Okay, maybe that's a bit of luxury, but if you don't have that, maybe you should invest a few hours per week, maybe one evening or so, to do something as a side project. Maybe develop something for an open source library, and that is tremendously helpful, and it will also open up your world in terms of you will meet a lot of people, you will find you work with new technology, you'll find people with different mindsets that you have to communicate with. It will you probably also run into all kinds of problems, but they will all be different from the day-to-day job that you have, and that's really good for your development.
I think that's a very good tip. Also within organizations, I see sometimes really small organizations just starting with data, and they start with a trainee or junior. And I think that's really the worst thing to do, because you need a senior to learn from. You need somebody teaching you, and also if the company doesn't know what they want and they don't know where to go, then it's really bad for your development. I have some A or B questions. So I want you to just, there's no middle ground. It is just A or B. So let's see. I think I know the first answer already, but let's see. Long in one organization or short assignments with different organizations?
Yeah, I would choose the second one. So B, I think. What I said in the beginning is there will probably still be people that stay there's still 20 years to an organization, which is very valuable for the organizations themselves. But I think if you were a junior or media, then I would suggest to switch roles, organizations, projects, etc. from time to time.
Yeah, I think that's I completely agree with that, and I think if you have never done it before, it's good to at least see what's out there to understand better what motivates you and what you like. Second question. And I think I also know this answer, but deep dive into one tool to be really a specialist, or average knowledge of multiple tools and be more of a generalist?
Yeah, if there's one of the two that I have to pick, then it will be the second one. So the average, the generalist, because I don't like it when people just say, hey, I am, for example, a Java programmer, or I am, an
Power BI developer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or a Snowflake database expert. Then okay, that's great for maybe for a while, maybe for even for a few years or so. Yeah. But it's probably not helping you in the long run. It's much more interesting to say, hey guys, I know how object orientation and object-oriented development works, and sure, I can do it in Java. That's where my most experience is, for example. But if needed, I can also do object-oriented programming in .NET or in Python. And okay, maybe I have to learn a bit, or pick it up a bit or so. But trust me, after a few weeks, I know what I'm doing, and I can apply the concepts that I've learned to new tool stack. So I think people should market themselves in that way. For organizations, it's always a bit difficult because they will say, okay, we have a tool stack now, we have a tech stack, and it consists indeed of Python. We run on AWS. We have DynamoDB database.
Yeah.
We have a data warehouse in Redshift, and now we're going to list those technologies, those 10 technologies in our vacancy, and we're going to search for somebody that checks all the boxes.
Yeah.
Which also, I think, a bad way to search for people, to search for the good engineers. So you have to be a bit flexible in that sense. I think you also, if you find a vacancy for yourselves where you say, hey, I'm probably a good match, but I just don't have this skill yet, be a bit bold and say, hey, okay, I don't have the skill yet, but I know that I can learn this in a few weeks or so.
Yeah, that's usually not what the organizations are selecting for. Sometimes it's just a check or not check. And I think that's also a loss.
Yeah, that's too bad, but that is still sometimes how this works, but okay.
Yeah. And I think also the T-shaped people that you have now is that you're both generalist and at one area at least a little bit more of deep dive so that you can do both. But then Snowflake versus Databricks.
Yeah, both are very, very good tools, but they are in a way comparable because they are both data platforms. I don't have a preference in either one of them, to be honest. I worked with both, and they are both great. They have a bit of a different background. There, Snowflake is a database in its core, which in the past years, I'm not exactly sure, but in the last years, some additional services and tools have been built on top of that to do, for example, machine learning. Databricks is basically coming from the other way around. They are more like a data processing platform built on Apache Spark, the open source data processing framework. Yeah. And they grew Spark into a whole tool set where you can do basically whatever you want, including data storage, data processing, machine learning, etc. They're both great ways to work with data. So I don't have a preference for that.
I see Databricks is at this moment more popular. I think Snowflake also gained a lot of popularity like 2 years ago, but now Databricks is dominating. I would say 3-1. And then Google versus Azure, or let's say even versus AWS.
Yeah, as I said, I have a bit of a personal preference maybe for either. So my personal preference is either Google or AWS. I like those two cloud stacks, infrastructures more a bit than Azure, but it's just a personal preference. I think if organizations choose for Azure as their cloud, then I can perfectly understand that because it's a great it's a great cloud platform. But for me personally, AWS and Google feel a bit more tech-oriented, more oriented towards developers, where Azure is a bit more oriented towards business people.
Yeah.
And that's caused my personal preference to be a bit in that area. But I would never, decline a project or not work for an organization if they have Azure, because it's still a very great infrastructure. And also, by the way, didn't mention that yet, but all of these have some of the underlying technologies available. For example, Kubernetes, which is of course the de facto containerizing platform at the moment, where you can basically run everything on. So if you choose that, then you don't even care about the cloud.
It's true. We just did a research and a survey under a little bit over 100 data engineers, and we're still processing the results. So we will publish it soon. But I see that Azure is still the most popular among data engineers, also the widely used most.
Yeah.
So that's I think also for organizations it might be easiest to step in. Like it's very low cost in the beginning. And you already have usually a Microsoft account, so it's just an add-on.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you have to choose between development, education, or salary rate?
Education. Yeah. Salary will come automatically if you follow your good education. And I really believe in the learning skills, or the personal development skills. If you spend a lot of attention on that, then I think that's always the better choice.
Yeah, and I think also if you're, let's say, in the beginning of your career, the first 5-6 years, each year your salary increases so much if you choose the right development, that it's not even like, don't worry about salary, it will come if you develop in the right way. So I completely agree. Would you, this also we already discussed it, but this is the last A/B question. Would you recommend, let's say, juniors to go or meteors to work in consultancy or for end clients?
Yeah, for most I would recommend consultancy, but it depends again a bit, of course, on your personal preference and your personal character, because basically in consultancy you learn so much. You usually have good senior people that can help you, that can give you advice and guidance. And also you can work for different projects. So you can work maybe half a year or 1 year for one client with one tech stack, and then switch to something else, and then find out gradually what you like and gain seniority and develop yourself further.
Yeah, that's I also agree there. Of course, we already discussed it before. I just want to say that if people are watching and they can follow us in either YouTube or in Spotify for all the other episodes, I want to end the podcast today with last question, and it's which influencers or YouTube channels or podcasts or books do you recommend other data engineers to absolutely follow?
Of course, you're listening to the right podcast already. Yeah, that's this one. So that's one. But there's also there's so many interesting sources and podcasts out there, including the Datalog in Dutch. That's also a very good Dutch resource here. What I would say, I would definitely recommend some of the communities, the open source communities that are out there. There's also several of them, but for example, I'm involved in the MLOps community and the Data Talks community.
And where are those communities?
They are online and they do all kinds of things like YouTube videos, podcasts. They actually have virtual conferences. They write blogs. So yeah, they basically have a lot of communication mechanisms.
Maybe we'll be able to share some of the links in the comments below. Just to specific either a certain platform, and where in LinkedIn maybe you can follow, or in YouTube, or whatever other, maybe just a fora. Like I think there's so many. Things, but let's make specific. Are there any specific names, like people?
Well, people, I would say, in data and machine learning, there's a few people with the big organizations. So the big organizations are Google, Meta, OpenAI. So we have, for example, Andrew Ng, which is who is a very, very influential teacher. He basically set up the Coursera platform, and he teaches a lot of good stuff on Coursera about machine learning mostly and MLOps.
Yeah.
Then there's on Twitter, for example, there's Jan LeCun, who is the Facebook head of data or head of ML, I believe. Of course, Sam Altman is now very much in Twitter as well.
The latest billionaire.
Yeah, you see him all over the place, and he has a lot of visionary statements there. If you go to the AI kind of range, there's 𝘮𝘢𝘮𝘀. He's from university in Toronto, I believe. And he is really on top of all the generative AI and all the real hardcore machine learning stuff. And he doesn't blog too much himself, but people that that work with him are constantly sending out all the latest and greatest information about that. Yeah. And there's now an interesting development because there was the head of data at Google. It's called Geoffrey Hinton. He recently left Google a few weeks ago to be actually independent of Google, because he said, when I work at Google, I cannot express my opinion so openly, because I'm always, of course, tied to the organization. Yeah. So he left Google, and he is actually one of the founding fathers of machine learning, etc. So he's really a big guy in this world, and he is now an independent consultant. So I expect a lot of him in the future when it comes to AI. He'll be probably launching his own consultancy company or something like that. So cool. I would definitely follow him as well.
Do you still go to offline events as well?
Yes. As I would also recommend that, by the way. Going to conferences and meetups, etc. It's a really good way to talk to other people that are in the same industry and to learn from other people, and also
develop your social skills a little bit.
Of course.
That's also good, of course.
Yeah, but also to get new ideas, right? And to I always feel very fresh, invigorated after I joined especially an offline conference. If you go to an online meetup or an online, you watch it online YouTube video, so you get distracted so easily. Yeah, you do some work in between, or after 5-10 minutes you think, okay, I'm still going to do something else. But if you're physically in a building somewhere else and you're taken out of your usual context, out of your house or your office building, then you're there for one or 2 days just to be in that conference, and that's for me that really helps a lot.
Yeah, good. I'm joining the World Data Summit in Amsterdam this week. Actually, probably when we publish this podcast, it's already over. So too late next year, but I will definitely be sharing what I learned there, and if I meet any interesting people. Bas, good. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Vincent.
Loved to hear your insights, and I think there's some interesting things for people to share. Maybe you can share still the names of the people that you follow.
I'll do that, definitely. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.